Hi, I'm Miko Hunter, and today I'm going to talk to you about the stages that I experience during the creative process. It's really easy to assume that when you watch a TV programme, read a book, or experience anything that somebody's created, that they've simply had the idea, did the work, and it was easy as that. But that's not how it is for me. First comes the idea, and in my experience, the idea doesn't pop into your head at the most convenient of times. In fact, the exact opposite from that. Usually, for me, it's the shower. Campbell, can you write something down for me? I've had an idea. Campbell? Campbell? Oh. Pen, 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 pen. 3 in the morning's also an excellent time for ideas for me. Also, I think the worst one is when you're just about to fall asleep. Because I like sleep. And usually, I just don't want to get up and write that idea down. Always be prepared when it comes to ideas. Keep a notebook by your bed. Invest in one of these if you have to. This is a voice recorder. I use it sometimes when I'm driving or when I can't get access to a pen and paper. If there's somebody that lives with you, shout on them. Shout your idea. Say it out loud because you're less likely to forget it. You have to be ready to jot these ideas down because if you're not, you'll lose them forever. And that's something that really irritates me, because what if it was a good story or a good recipe or something that was going to be really, really good and I just couldn't be bothered to write it down. Now, if you're in a situation where you just can't jot down your idea, you can't get anywhere to put it, you haven't got your phone with you, you haven't got a voice recorder and you just can't find a pen anywhere, then I've adopted a trick that I learned from DERREN. It's about visualising your idea with something ridiculous. Something that you'll not forget, so that when you get home and you do have access to somewhere where you can jot this idea down, then you're going to remember the main premise of it. Now, I'm going to put a link to the description of the book I'm talking about. It's called Memory, Tricks of the Mind by DERREN. And it's not just a good technique for remembering one-off ideas. I actually use it when I'm trying to memorise stand-up because it helps you remember a string of things. Some of you have probably heard this technique before, and such as Sherlock. It's the sort of mind palace idea, and for me it really does work, so I suggest having a look at it if you aren't really good at remembering things. Next stage is planning. Now, this for me is the really fun bit, but obviously everybody's different. I really enjoy getting books on the subject that I'm looking to write on or that I'm looking to write jokes on. I like to get as much information as I can so that when I go into the next stage, I'm as prepared as possible. I like textbooks. That's actually where I get a lot of my research for a lot of jokes that I've written, for scripts that I've written, and just ideas in general that I want to build on. However, probably the most obvious research technique tool is the internet. I mean, literally, there is nothing that you can't find out about on the internet. So whether it's bogging yourself down in loads of books or surfing the web for hours at a time, planning can be the most important part of the creative process. And the reason for that is because of the next stage, starting your creative project. Sometimes the thought of starting it is the worst part. You build it up in your head, you get a lot of anxiety about it. It doesn't matter what creative genre that you're working in. When it comes to starting something, that can actually be the most anxiety-ridden part about the whole thing. And it's certainly the bit that I struggle with the most. And this is how I get round it. Now, if you've really put your work in the planning stage, then you should have all the information ready to go. For example, if baking is your creative genre, you're not going to bake the cake without first going out and buying the flour and eggs and other ingredients. And it's the same for every single creative pursuit. You must have that planning in place. But that doesn't make starting the project any easier. The best thing that you can do to start your project is start it. It's as simple as that. Any fear that you've got about how wrong it could go or how you're not going to get it right the first time, at least there's going to be something there for you to start with. For example, when I write jokes, I never ever get it right the first time. I have never once written a joke and thought straight away, well, that's perfect, because these things need worked on. But in order to work on it, you have to put something pretty average down. And for a lot of people who are maybe perfectionists or completionists, that might not be what they're looking for, and that is where the anxiety comes in. You don't want to put something down on paper, you don't want to put something out in front of you that isn't as good as you would like it to be. But unfortunately, there is no getting past that. So my advice is just start. Don't worry, put that voice out your head and just start that project, because everything can be improved on at a later stage. Now, we're about to get into the hardest stages of the creative process, but I really suggest staying to the end of the video to find out the 2 best bits about it. The next couple of stages is where things start to get a bit ropey and where a lot of people give up. And sometimes you can't blame them, but unfortunately it's just part of the process, so let's talk about it. I call it the this is rubbish stage. I've given up on loads of projects purely because I didn't realise that that part of the creative process was always going to be there, no matter how good I got or how long I did it. In fact, I think the best person to explain this to you is past Miko, who is at that stage right now. Now, give her a break. She's not really very good at audio. She's a bit stressed out, so let's see what she's got to say.
There is a stage in the creative process, every creative process, where you get so far through what you're doing and you think, this is awful. No one will want to see this. A bit like my face right now. You've kind of got to push through that because it's always going to come up. It's always going to try and stop you from doing what you're doing. And bearing in mind that when you release what you've made, your final project, whatever it may be, whether it's writing, whether it's film making, crocheting, baking, whatever, when you finish it, people are seeing that for the first time, but you've seen it over and over and over and over again, and it makes you extra critical of what you're doing. So just bear that in mind and push through. The next stage, unavoidable procrastination.
Now here is where things get a bit controversial, because not everybody's going to agree with me about this. Now, procrastination is something that people will tell you to avoid at all costs. It shouldn't be entertained. It's just your brain's way of telling you that you shouldn't be doing it because it doesn't want to, because it's scared. And to a certain degree that is absolutely right. But it's my belief that a small amount of procrastination is sometimes necessary during the creative process. If I give my brain time just to forget about what I'm doing, just to relax, to walk the dog, wash the dishes, or watch some television, then sometimes I'll find that my brain will fix out problems that I'm having in the creative process that I wasn't getting past myself. That's how procrastination can benefit me, because the amount of times that I have actually fixed a problem by just relaxing and letting my brain do whatever it wanted, and then suddenly, there it is, pops into my head. That's how we fix that problem. That's how we move on to the next stage of the process. So you need to work out if this is for you. In saying that I think procrastination is an important part of the process, there is a line, because you can just keep going and going and going until you just give up entirely, or by the time you go back to the project, the creative flow's gone. So you need to recognise within yourself when procrastination is healthy for you and when it just becomes a way to avoid doing the work. The next stage is loads of fun. I love this bit. And this is when you've been working so long and everything's going okay and you're quite happy with the progress, and then all of a sudden something just clicks. It all comes together. It doesn't really matter what genre you're in creatively. It can be anything really. But you do always tend to find that you get a breakthrough, a time when you realise what you're doing is worth it and you can go forward making what you're doing better. My advice would be to sort yourself out a little breakthrough dance, because it makes the whole thing loads more fun. And this is the last stage, the stage that you're really aiming for when you start your creative project, the end result. The trouble is deciding when the end is the end. For creative people, nothing's ever good enough for them, in my experience. If you give them a piece of work to work on, they will work and work and work and work and work. And sometimes you need to just stop and say, okay, this is good enough, this is ready. Because you can overanalyze your own work to the point that you end up taking it back the way and making it worse than it was. I find this a bit of a problem when I'm editing video, is that I just can't stop. Something has always got to be tweaked, something's always got to be fixed, something annoys me when I'm watching it. I could sit there literally for days doing that, and that could be something that nobody even notices as soon as it's been released. So I think you need to know yourself, when is it done? But you can also have other people read your work, look at your work, taste your work, do whatever needs to be done to say, that's amazing. Because sometimes when you've looked at a piece of work for so long, you stop seeing the beauty in it, you stop seeing the good in it. And that's why you can't stop trying to make it in your head better. But when others see it, they will appreciate the things that you're not seeing while you're making it. So I think it's important to recognise when you're done. So these are obviously my stages of the creative process. They might not be exactly how you'll experience it, but what I would say is try to monitor it as you make and create. Try to see the stages that you go through yourself. Maybe keep a creative journal through the process so that you can look back on it when you start a new project. Because then you can say, I felt like this last time, that's okay. And then 2 weeks later, I felt better, or a couple of hours after I'd got through that bit, I felt really good. So you can start to acknowledge your own creative process and not just mine. And that's you. you're done. It's ready to go out into the world, it's ready to be experienced, and you're ready to see how it's appreciated by others. And that is a feeling that is really hard to beat when you have created something, when it started in there and now it's here and you can share it with everybody else. You can't beat that feeling. But if you don't jump those hurdles in the middle of the creative process, jump the hardest bits, if you don't get over the procrastination, if you don't get over the self-doubt, you'll never find out what you can truly create. So push through, hunt for the creative you, and unleash your story. I knew that'd be upside down. I knew that would happen.